Hello everybody, this is CDS here, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about something that I've pretty much been keeping quiet about since the beginning since the reveal of it, basically, has been the sort of progression of Metroid Prime 4 with Retro Studios. Now, as you guys know, I have not been posting any sort of updates regarding anything important with Retro Studios, mainly because the only thing that they've been doing over the last couple of years since retrieving the programming duties for Metroid Prime 4 is basically they've just been hiring a bunch of staff here and there. Now, I wanted to go ahead and address a few concerns that I personally have with Metroid Prime 4's extended development, and also my thoughts on the potential release date, and also the potential date and when we can actually see any sort of gameplay footage. So, obviously, back in E3 of 2017, the only thing we were shown was a JPEG logo of Metroid Prime 4. Over the next several months to a year, we had heard murmurs about how the game was being developed, and heard murmurs about where it could be being developed by and by who. And in January of, I believe it was 2018 or 2019, I can't remember off the top of my head, we were told by Nintendo themselves that they were scrapping the entire development of Metroid Prime 4 and sending the development team over to Retro Studios in hopes that the Retro Studios team can actually create a Metroid game that Nintendo themselves will be satisfied with. Now, during the creative tumult between the two development teams, it's believed that most, if not all, of the progress made on the game was completely scrapped. Now, of course, there's no corroborating proof of this, but given the fact that it has been over 2 years since the switch to the next team, we can pretty much assume that they are working from scratch, especially considering that they're hiring all new staff. Now, since the reveal that Retro Studios was going to be the ones developing the Metroid Prime 4, there have been murmurs around the internet for the last several months to a year and a half about who's going to be hired, why they're being hired, and a couple of news bombs as far as like certain developers from really big AAA games are being hired for the Retro team. But in all honesty, a lot of people are thinking that because the company is still hiring people, that they have no progress made on the game whatsoever. Or, if not no progress, not enough progress to actually assume that anything's really being done on the game. Now, I want to address a couple rumors that I have heard floating around. Number one, the most obvious one, is that everyone thinks that Metroid Prime 4 is never going to happen because the curse of the Metroid series, and while I can understand that to a certain extent, we also have to understand that between the release of Metroid 2, Return of Samus, and Super Metroid, between the years of 91 and 94, there was pretty much no announcement of a Metroid game whatsoever, and a lot of people believed that Super Metroid was going to be cancelled altogether. And of course, between the releases of Super Metroid in 1994 and the release of Metroid Prime and Metroid Fusion in 2002, there was next to no information on a Metroid game whatsoever. There was believed to be something in the development for the Nintendo 64, but that ended up falling through and the rumors just ended up dying on arrival. And of course, in 2002, we got two of the best-selling Metroid games, and my personal favorite in Metroid Prime. But we also have to remember, even after that, that this is not the only dry spell we've ever had, because of course, the most infamous one is after the release of Metroid Other M in 2010, and before to the release of Metroid Prime Federation Force in 2017, we heard literally nothing except for a rumored project of Metroid Dread, which I believe actually was something that came out before that, but that was the first time that I personally had heard of it. I know that there was a scan log in Metroid Prime 3 that supposedly alluded to the possibility of Project Dread being almost close to completion, but that of course ended up being nothing except for a wink and a nod to the developers. Now, personally, for me, I believe that the game is about 30% complete. Now, I say 30% because I highly doubt that there has been no progress whatsoever on the development of Metroid Prime 4. It seems kind of ridiculous to assume that Metroid Prime 4 has seen no actual game development and things of that nature just because they're looking for, like, boss designers and stuff like that. Now, just because they're looking for boss designers doesn't mean that they're looking for people to actually create, like, the sketch drawings of the bosses, and they haven't even gotten them into any sort of 3D model yet. there is no reason to assume that Metroid Prime 4 has not been at least in some progress towards completion over the last 2 years. I just don't believe that whatsoever. Now, of course, there's no evidence to prove that it is, so of course we're going pretty much on speculation here. However, to kind of address something else is that a lot of people believe that Metroid Prime 4 is not even going to come out for the Nintendo Switch, because at the rate of which the Switch has been out, and the rate at which it's taking Metroid Prime 4 to develop, a lot of people believe that the Metroid Prime 4 will not come out until the Switch 2, as it were. Some other enhanced model of Nintendo Switch, or even the console that will then precede the Switch. I do not believe this whatsoever because of a couple of statements. Number one was one done by Nintendo themselves, where they wanted to support the Nintendo Switch for up to 10 years. Now granted, that is absurdly long for a single console. I think the only consoles that really had that much support were like the Wii and the PS2. Although PS2 is a very serious outlier considering how many people actually bought the damn console. Nevertheless, I personally believe that the Nintendo Switch is going to last for about 7 years, and Metroid Prime 4 is going to release within that time frame. I've heard a lot of rumors going around saying that Metroid Prime 4 is going to be on the Switch 2, and it's never going to be a AAA Switch title. Now, I do understand the concerns of people in the community who have been talking about that. I myself am concerned as well. I don't want to have to buy a whole new, brand new console just to play one game that I'm not even sure I'm going to really like in the first place. Granted, it is Metroid, and the only Metroid games I never liked were Metroid Prime Hunters because of the control scheme, Metroid Prime Pinball because I'm not a big fan of pinball, and Metroid Prime Federation Force because it's a game nobody wanted. However, given all this information, a lot of people are still speculating that Metroid Prime 4's development will be halted again for a second time, even if the progression of the game is actually going along smoothly. The main reason for this speculation is because of the fact that there has been a trickle of employment opportunities for people to come into the Retro development team to develop for Prime 4. Now, just because, as I said before, just because Retro is hiring more people doesn't mean they haven't made any progress on the game. If anything, it actually means they've made quite a lot of progress, and they're finalizing certain aspects of the creative team to try to make sure that they get the best experience possible to monitor for the games. If they're hiring people from specific industries or specific companies that are very good and versed in the field in which they are being hired for, there's no reason to assume that they're not trying to hire for the best of the best. I mean, Metroid Prime 4 is the hotly awaited and pretty much nobody knew was going to happen, I guess you could say, sequel to the trequel? It's kind of hard to, sequel to the trilogy, I guess you could say. So it's kind of hard to assume that, Metroid Prime 4 is not going to get the love and it properly deserves. Especially considering, again, Retro Studios is back in the helm. I know that most of the staff from the original Retro Studios team for Prime 1 through 3 is no longer with the company, but the simple fact that Retro Studios is a bomb-ass company, in my opinion, is going to be the ones working on Metroid Prime 4. I mean, that's something, at least to me, worthy enough to be hopeful for. Now, what I want to address real quick as well is my believed assumption as to when the game will actually have some gameplay footage to show us, because as I said before, the only thing we have to go on is a logo. I personally believe that by the third quarter, around August to November of 2021, we will finally see gameplay of Metroid Prime 4. Now, I say around that time because they are hiring for most of the positions they need left, and also it just makes more sense to me. I mean, I would be surprised if we got anything earlier than that. But I would hope that if they do that, it would be somewhere around Metroid's 35th anniversary, which I think would be just absolutely incredible to celebrate the anniversary with some footage of the newest game in the series. Now, as far as when the game is actually going to come out, my assumption for that is the third quarter of 2022, around August to November, possibly even into December. I base that pretty much on the way that a lot of Nintendo games have worked with Mario, Zelda, and Pokemon, where they usually will reveal the trailer a year before, or reveal gameplay, rather, a year before the game actually releases. Now, of course, Metroid is a little bit weird in that regard, because Metroid doesn't really have that sort of... I wasn't really aware of Metroid when the Metroid series was actually popular, actually making games. I didn't become a fan of Metroid until 2009 before Other M came out. So I was stuck in the middle of the longest drought the series has ever seen. So for me, it's like I didn't really know any better. But either way, that's kind of my my thoughts and opinions regarding it. But yeah, I guess I don't really have much else to say. If you guys want me to do a video on my ideas of what could be in Metroid Prime 4, please leave that in the comments of a yes or no to that idea. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been ZDS, making it fun one video at a time, and I will see you guys in the next one.